Welcome to Lawyer of the Week. Lawyer of the Week is creating a global community of lawyers, solicitors, and their support to inform and to encourage each other. My name is Pamela Deneuve, and I help focused and successful lawyers to move their practice to the next level and to achieve their peak performance. This week, we have a peak performer who's sharing their story. Please join us. We hope that you enjoy it.
Hi, my name is Pamela Deneuve, and welcome to Lawyer of the Week. This week, we are so pleased and honored to have Denise Nurse as our Lawyer of the Week. And let me tell you a little bit about Denise. Denise is a new law pioneer and has been spearheading operational, structural, and cultural change within the legal services industry since starting Hailberry in 2007. Her aim? To create an entirely original business model to serve the needs of clients and lawyers at the senior end of the market. 10 years, and congratulations on your 10-year anniversary. 10 years on, Hailberry is a leading provider of flexible sourcing solutions and strategic management support for in-house legal teams and SME businesses. With a legal team of over 35 senior in-house lawyers and a client base including Sky, Royal Mail, BT, and Virgin Media, it is highly ranked for legal advice within the telecoms, media, and technology sectors. Denise is a game changer in more ways than one. She has successfully and uniquely combined her legal and television career, launching and managing Hailberry whilst presenting for Sky News and BBC, One's Escape to the Country, and she continues with her media career as she strongly believes that experiences outside the legal industry can enhance your legal outlook and lead to innovation. Welcome, Denise.
Thank you, Pamela. Thank you. That was a very nice introduction. Who wrote that? It was very like, oh, who did that stuff?
Wow.
It's really, thank you. Thank you for having me as Lawyer of the Week. It's a real honor to be added to the roll call.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I'd like to begin by asking you the Lawyer of the Week questions. So what and when did you decide to become a solicitor?
So this is an interesting question because I can actually answer that quite specifically, which not everyone can. But I remember being 14 years old and really loving watching a program called LA Law. So it's an unusual answer, but I used to love that program, and it was the first time I thought about law as a career. And in the UK education system, when you're age 13, 14, that's when they have a moment in time they call your options. Mm-hmm. So you have to start narrowing down the subjects that you're interested in. So I was going through that period of having to decide what I wanted to do. And I very much liked history, English, the arts type subjects. I was very involved with public speaking. And did some performance as well, and was already had an eye to going to university. I was going to be the first person in our family, so we're first generation immigrants into the UK. My parents are Caribbean, so I was going to be the first one to go to university. So I very much wanted a career, and at that point, many years ago, the options tended to be law, accountancy, doctor, or teacher or nurse. And I'm not very good with the science or the numbers. And while that was the maybe more flippant reason, also underlying that, I very much like problem solving, and I often would end up being the person representing people. So all of those factors made law a very interesting prospect when I was 14.
Oh, that's very, very interesting. Now, tell us, so when you're 14, because it's a little different here in the U.S., how does that work that you sort of decide which way you want to go? Is that
So
like
at
you're
that
getting ready to go into high school or?
Yeah, so at that stage you're in, I guess, what you would call high school already, but you're,
Mhm,
as I say, you're narrowing down your subject choices. So at that point,
mhm,
you're starting at what we call GCSEs, which are a range of the first kind of accredited examinations that the whole nation takes.
mhm,
They used to be called O levels.
mhm,
And so there are between 9 and 10 subjects that you will take, and maths and English and a language are set, and then you'll have options.
mhm,
So at that point, if you want to do medicine, for example, you may choose physics, chemistry, biology, and maths, and head that way. And if you want to do arts, you might choose art and design and something else. So you still have enough of a range, but you start to narrow it down. Then you finish that, and when you're 16, you choose advanced level options. So I think in the US, your system just spans that whole period, whereas we break it down. So
mhm,
16 to 18, I then had to choose A levels. And again,
mhm,
I stuck with those same subjects, history, English, and French.
mhm,
Um, but with the UK legal system, you also have to decide quite early on how you want to qualify as a solicitor, because it takes so long. So also I was quite keen to qualify and
mhm,
to be able to earn and become independent.
mhm.
And so the quickest way to do that was to do a law degree, which would be
Yes.
3 years, a
Mhm.
year's legal practice course, which is mandatory, and then 2 years training with your firm. So that's a 6-year process. So deciding very early on is what I wanted to do meant that I could like head very directly for that very straight line path that I wanted to get on. So I could be qualified by the time I was 21. So by the time I was 21, I was qualified. I was done.
Okay.
Job.
Okay, so you were 21, so did you go into traditional law at that time?
Yes. So I went so I was 21 when I got my training contract. So I was done. I had the last 2 years, but I had a role with a traditional law firm called Charles Russell, now called Charles Russell Speechley.
Mhm,
I was one of 9 people who were taken into their cohort of trainees. Um, and that was amazing, partly
mhm.
because I had to apply 2 years in advance to get that role. So I was second year of my degree.
Wow.
When I made that application, I had no clue. I didn't know if I was going to get it, but I got through
Mhm,
the process and they offered me a place. And at that point, again, I was starting to narrow down what I wanted to do, and I really enjoyed family law um, academically.
mm,
Academically, it was fascinating. Um, but I also liked commercial law, particularly media and intellectual property. So the two are very different disciplines. So
mhm,
I looked for firms with who had a good status and a good reputation, who could offer me great training in both areas. That's quite unusual. You usually get one that specialises in one or the other.
mhm.
So it was a very narrow shortlist, and Charles Russell was one of the leading law firms for family law, and they had a very strong IP department. So that's where I wanted to go. So I joined a fairly traditional firm, but at least it had an interesting um, range of disciplines. And it meant that during my training contract, I should have been able to do everything. As it
Mhm.
turned out, I never did a seat in family law.
Oh, really?
I know, it never happened. I went straight. The first seat I was given, so they give you 4 seats, they call it,
Mhm,
6 months in each,
mhm,
and you have to do some litigation, and you have to do some other things. Family law is my number one choice, um, but I didn't get it. I got my 0 choice, which was commercial property, and property law was the thing I hated most in the world at that stage. So to say I was quite disappointed,
uh-huh,
I was disappointed, but I figured here I am. You'll
uh-huh,
learn. I went
mhm,
straight into the seat, and what I discovered was I still didn't like property law that much, but I loved business. So the commercial aspect, the
mhm,
deal making, the
mhm,
solutions finding, it's like, okay, this is good. I like this. So then I headed for seats that gave me that, and I re-examined family law, and family law at that level.
mhm,
It's actually private client work. It's actually a lot of pensions advice, and it's a lot of families in a very distraught position, and it felt less about solutions finding at that
mm,
point, and I was much more interested in working proactively to help create solutions, and help people when they're on a path to togetherness, rather
mhm.
than heading the other way. So hence my change of direction.
So that was enough of family law for you.
That was another family law. Yep. Looked at it from across the way and thought, okay, there's got
Uh-huh.
to be a better way of helping families. I mean, you need lawyers, and if you get to that point, you absolutely need them, and I highly respect the work that they do. But if I was going to head that way, I would be much more interested in meeting families before they get to the point where they're spending a lot of money on lawyers.
Yes, 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 yes. So now tell me a little bit about your biggest wins in your practice and your biggest challenges.
Well, I suppose I have to tell you about the practice itself, because setting up the practice itself was probably the biggest challenge, in that my co-founder and I were trainees together at Charles Russell, so we met very early on in our careers. And what we were seeking to do in setting up Helbury was create a whole new way of running a law firm. I had left private practice and gone to work for a company, B Sky B, in-house. So it was a media company, and I was an in-house lawyer. And that exposed me to the world of business in a much more immediate way.
Mm-hmm.
And I could just see so many ways that law firms could be run more efficiently if there were other people other than lawyers kind of as part of the decision-making process, and you brought in other skills. I also thought the way that a lawyer advised a business was very different. So you're much more commercial. You see the effect of your advice. It's so much more immediate. So we were looking to create a firm that provided lawyers who had those attributes already, who could hit the ground running and integrate with businesses and provide very quick practical advice. On the flip side, we also thought for lawyers, there weren't many options for their career. You could be in a traditional firm and work your way up to partner level, which, as everyone is talking about now, for women isn't always an easy road because of the structures that make it hard to have a family and, you know, find your way to the top of the pile. And also if you worked for a business, there was only one top job and there wasn't so much of a career path. So we were looking for a way to meet everyone's needs. So saying to traditional law, there's a better way of doing it. You don't have to do hourly rates. You can charge fixed fees. You can price your business better. Saying to lawyers, you don't have to work in that structure. You can work this way and still have a credible career. And saying to clients, hey, guess what? We're new kids on the block, but we are as credible as all of the big names that you know. All of that was a challenge.
Yes.
But we spent a lot of time going around educating the market. So talking to people, understanding their challenges, saying, would this be a solution? They go, yes, that would be. But lawyers by their nature are quite cautious, take a long time sometimes to change.
Absolutely.
So the biggest challenge has been educating the market. And what's so exciting now, 10 years on, is that this area of law is no longer something I have to explain. In the UK, they tag it new law, and we are one of 3 or 4 other main players who've been around this long, but now there are many law firms who have set up their own, what they call agile section of the business, which behaves a little bit like us. There are new entrants to the market, and my conversations now with general counsel is much more about options and how they work rather than explaining why this works. So it's an amazing challenge, and it's been wonderful to kind of get that up and running and establish it. We are now mentioned in legal directories. They have sections in awards ceremonies for new law. You know, it is established, and that's something I'm really, really proud of.
Wonderful, wonderful. So one of the things that I like to highlight because is peak performance. And so what would you say to our audience? Because, you know, there's a time, I'm sure, where you just thought this isn't going to work, where you might have almost have given up, but one or both of you cheered the other one on and you were able to keep going on. Tell us about those times and how you were able to continue despite all of the obstacles that were in the way.
So in all honesty, the obstacles in the way in any area of my life, I always see as just an obstacle that I'm looking to how I get around. So I don't often have times where I want to give something up or I'm thinking, oh, that's it. So my mindset is always, this is a journey. Life is a journey. I don't know how long I'm here. So if this has come up and it feels like an obstacle, what is it? Why is it an obstacle? And my driving force is always my purpose. So do I know what my purpose is, and am I moving towards that or away from it? And if I feel like I'm moving away from it, then I need to realign and then I get going again. So that's kind of the underlying way I view most things. And so even in business, so I suppose the difficult times for us, if we're looking back, would be we had no funding. So we were, two female lawyers setting up on our own, and it was at the start of the crash. So we set up in 2007 and 2008,
wow.
the world falls down. And we
Wow.
like to say we were about to sign Lehman Brothers as a client, and we were very excited, and then, switched on the news and saw the whole business collapse.
Oh no.
People walking out with their boxes. So, it was a tricky time, and, all the funding was closing down and no one wanted to, help. So we were constantly battling against, well, we've got no funding, we have to grow organically, we have to believe in what we're doing. But it's just something where we set the focus, that's what we're going to do. We found a strategy and then we worked on that. And as I say, 10 years on, things are different. So the main challenges, I would say, in anything you're doing are usually your mind. So what I work really hard on with peak performance, to your question, is mind management.
Yes.
That's the thing I have to focus on. So if I'm feeling stressed out and overwhelmed and all those things, then I need to pay attention to my mind. What thoughts am I thinking? What is leading me down this road to feel so overwhelmed? And you need to declutter your mind a bit, and then you'll have the way forward. And that kind of aligns with my point on purpose. What is it? Why am I feeling off purpose? And what do I need to do? And so over the years, I developed various practices. I mean, like many people, I pray. I've always prayed. I see that as a version of meditation. So some people, they do meditation or other things, but that's about quiet time for your mind for me. Exercise. Like to set myself challenges in different formats. Early on, I used to dance a lot, which I think is very good and creative for your mind. Now I run. And so I'm about to do my first half marathon in a week's time. So
wow, congratulations.
Thank you. So I find things like that keep your body in check, also clear your mind and help your thoughts. And then I do pointed mind and thought work, whether it's with a coach or reading appropriate books or yoga or whatever it is, but I'm very thoughtful about that and paying attention to my mind.
Oh, great. Well, you actually answered about the stress levels. So let me I want to ask you two things. One, I want to ask you about what would you say your biggest win has been?
Oh, I would say our biggest win. So there's one win which means a lot because my former employer became a client, Sky. At that point, in the very beginning, when we were nothing, we had an idea. We set up a law firm, and I said to them, "I've set up a law firm. Would you be my client?" And they said no. And they said no, not because they didn't think I could do it, but because I was also television presenting. And the GC said, "I don't see how you can be a lawyer and advise me while you're also off filming. You won't have time." And I was like, "Trust me, you're not a lawyer 24/7. I block my time. I do the work. I would do it, manage it." And someone gave me a chance within the team, and that has been a 10-year relationship. We have lots of lawyers who work with them. We have a great partnership. So that's been an amazing win, but they knew me. So I suppose for me, the biggest win then came 5 years later when we got onto the panel for BT, which is British Telecom, which is the biggest telecommunications provider in the UK. And that was from cold. So I didn't know anyone there, neither did Janvi, my co-founder. And we spent 4 years getting to know them, networking, attending meetings, presenting, analyzing, building relationships. And to get to a point where we would get onto their panel, we had to help them see that their panel process was excluding innovation. So their old panel process was very rigid, as most businesses have. So it's, well, these are our traditional law firms, and then we'll ask questions which only fit them, which meant lots of small and startups and different creative ways couldn't fit into the molds they were setting. So we helped them to kind of think again about, well, what actually do you want to achieve? What services do you need? And then you'll get so much more breadth of choice. So they ran a new panel selection, which was for new law, and we were lucky to get onto that. But they also now work with so many innovative companies. They are leaders in the market for running an innovative legal department, and that's been an amazing journey. And again, we've worked with them now for 6 years, and it's been amazing. So I'd say I still feel those two, but the second one, I guess, is the biggest win.
Oh, that's wonderful. Now, what kind of clients do you look for? What kind of businesses and corporations do you seek as clients?
So our model supports most businesses. We're lawyers and we provide legal solutions, and we're commercial lawyers effectively, so we can support most businesses. But the businesses that work best with us are those that are innovative, that are interested in the 3 E's that we're interested in, which is how to be more efficient, more effective, and more empowered. And where you have leadership like that, or they will be seeking partners who have a similar mindset, and so we work very well together because we're able to supply to their needs, and they're very agile and flexible and creative. So I would say that's probably the reason that many of our early clients were in the technology sector,
Yes.
or fintech, because as a concept, their whole business is about change and being agile, and they're not so steeped in history, and they're very open to collaboration and open source, and all of these ideas permeate the business. So the legal team that they work with needs to work that way. And what we're finding now is that other industries are catching up to that, as you'll see in the news. So everyone's now having to innovate and be more efficient and more effective because the economy demands it, and therefore we're seeing more clients who are more aligned with our way of thinking.
Okay. Well, Denise, what kind of legacy would you like to leave? Well, the second question I want to go back is, tell us a little bit about your television work and in the media.
So that came about partly by chance. The actual opportunity to become a television presenter happened when I was working as a lawyer at Sky, and they were looking for presenting talent from within their staff, which we thought was just a gimmick for employee engagement. But many of us from the legal department entered. I entered and was one of the top 10 chosen. We were trained, and my peers all voted me the winner. And out of that, I was given an opportunity to present for Sky News and for the weather. So that led to that specific opportunity. But before that, I have always had an interest in performance and performing arts. So I danced most of my life, and only since having children I've stopped. I used to run a youth dance organisation in my spare time. I used to host events. I used to put on charity events. So it's a lot. I'd always had that interest outside. And so when the opportunity to do that professionally came up, it kind of made sense. It started off with them offering me 6 months to present for the weather for Sky News while my legal job was kept open. And I just took the opportunity at that point. Why not? Try something different. And that was what led to me starting Hellberry, because it made me step away from my career and look at myself differently. And if, for people watching this who are lawyers, my experience for myself and for the lawyers that we work with is, as I described at the beginning, it's a very driven profession with a very linear career path that you can see very early on. So you can end up quite easily just becoming quite tunnel visioned about your career and your path, and just driving towards that goal, and you don't always step away and look at the bigger picture and see what else you can do. So I had that amazing opportunity to do that. So stepping away, I then had an agent, and she introduced me to the BBC, and I ended up presenting a property show in the UK called Escape to the Country, which takes people from the cities who want to go and live in the countryside, and you look at beautiful houses and you experience the British countryside. So it's a bit of a fantasy that lots of British people have, and people love the program. It's very gentle and nice, and it was amazing. I loved doing it. But that whole experience allowed me to have different perspective on being a lawyer. It allowed me to step away from the badge of lawyer. I was very wrapped up in the title, I think, for a while, because it's easy to become that. You get a certain level of respect just because you say you're a lawyer. And I was allowed to step away from that and look at it differently and more holistically. What does it mean? What do I want to do? How do I want to contribute to the profession and the world? So my TV career has, it's something I've loved doing. It helps with a certain part of my personality and creativity, and it's
Wonderful.
fed into my legal world as well. And for Helbury now, with all lawyers that join, I don't ask them to be TV presenters, but I ask about their whole life. I want them to be their best selves, bring their best selves to work. We have people on our team who are also journalists, so they write regularly for leading publications. We have another lady who runs her own childcare franchise, which is doing really well. Plus, she's a lawyer with us. We have someone who takes part in motorcycle racing at a very high level. So rather than these being things you have to do on the side and hide, we want to bring it all to work, and it just, you get a better quality of life and a better quality of lawyer, I think.
Right. So then how does this all play, what you're creating here with Hailberry, and how you're serving your clients in a very all-encompassing way, and that you're allowing the lawyers to come holistically, to be who they are, all parts of them, and to be balanced and integrative in all their approach. So you're like, it's like you're having the party here. and you're doing it, with your presenting on TV and all of that. So what legacy would you want to leave for the world?
That's a good question, because I have several things I'd like to leave for the world. But in this respect in particular, changing the workplace environment so that we value people, the whole person, and then we value the results we create rather than value time, bums on seats time, presenteeism, or whether you tick a particular box or you. So I think those constraints and structures are what have led us, that worked for a while, and there's been lots of progress in society, but now we see it all around us. In the UK at the moment, there is a lot of focus on gender equality, women's equal pay. We are having more transparency, and it's very clear women have been getting paid a hell of a lot less than men for a very long time to do the same job. And a lot of that, I think, is not necessarily malicious. It's ignorance. No one's paid attention to it, and the structures have not allowed not just women but all sorts of people to rise up the value chain in the current structures. So if I can play a part in changing the emphasis of the workplace to focus on, are we moving towards a goal, are we getting a solution, and I don't really care where you sit when you do that. And in fact, I would encourage you to pick up your child from school if you can, and spend some time with your children and your husband or your wife, as well as get the work done. I think that leads to a better society. It means we're looking after our families, we're spending time with each other, plus we're then bringing ourselves to the world of work. And taking it to another level, I embrace the idea of technology, stepping in. And there's a lot of fear about technology taking our jobs, and will a lawyer exist anymore because this clever computer will do everything we can do? I think bring it on. It'll be great if we have computers doing more. Then our minds are freer to serve higher purpose, to work with each other, to care for each other. So it sounds quite lofty, but I feel that what we're doing is part of that journey, and we are helping to open doors, give others opportunities. And ultimately, I would like the new generation of lawyers that are coming through to have a different experience, a more rounded experience early on, and to have better skills training early on, so they're able to contribute in that way much sooner.
Wow, that's really great. So if it seems that, you are really a innovator, and you are a person who wants to really encourage change and growth.
Absolutely. To
And
encourage change and growth, and to encourage everyone to have the confidence to really own who they are and be who they are. So have the confidence to have that conversation at work, have the confidence to set up their business if that's what they want to do, have for women in particular to have the opportunity to say, yes, I want to be a great mother, wife, daughter, whatever it is. But I also do love my career, and I would like to run that, but this is how I would like it to look.
Yes.
And then be able to deliver that. So that is the dream. That's what I try and do at Helbury for my staff that work to support the lawyers. You know, we work with each of them individually to ensure, you know, this idea of balance. It's just that they have a way of expressing themselves and talking about their whole lives. They don't have to hide anything, and then we work together to reach solutions. And yeah, helping people to do that, to you know, it sounds cheesy, but to live their dream is what I love.
Wow. Well, from the 14-year-old who decided from LA Law to become a lawyer to actually being a change agent in the legal community with a new law, you know, firm that just celebrated a 10-year anniversary. It's just been such an honor to have you as our Lawyer of the Week, Denise. And we really wish you continued success, which I think there's no question about that.
It has been wonderful to speak to you, Pamela, and I really applaud the work you're doing. Sharing stories is such a vital part of this, and I'm a big believer that everybody has a story. Everyone has something to share. So I'm delighted to have shared mine today, and I look forward to the rest of the series.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And to my audience, thank you so much for joining us today for Lawyer of the Week, and we hope to see you again next week.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining Lawyer of the Week. As always, I encourage and support each one of you to achieve your own peak performance, move your law practice to the next level, and create your own legacy. I love to read your comments about how you achieve peak performance in your law practice below.